Welcome to Picks with the Professor, college basketball edition, Thursday, December 7th. Because there are 5 games on Thursday. We have found 3 picks for you, viewer, on those 5 games. And we do have a couple of other A-grade picks that we aren't going to talk about on show for our people over on Dub Club, but it's definitely some slim pickings for Thursday. I haven't looked at the Friday slate, but I know people have mentioned that the Friday slate might not be great as well. So we got a couple of drier days here, apparently.
Yep. And that's what you'll get this time of year after coming off all of the preseason conference games and even, or preseason tournament games. And then some teams even starting like conference games so early. Definitely the schedule reflects that, where they're taking a little bit of time to rest, or, they're scheduling, North, South, East, Western University,
right.
Just for a little warm up. So yeah, not the best slate the next few days for sure.
No, not at all. But again, if you are looking for more plays and projections, even though we're giving you like half the picks here on this show, you can sign up on Dub Club and get $5 off your first month using the link in the show description. Or if you're with us on YouTube, you can just scan the QR code that's on your screen. Lock in the current pricing as we go to the new year. Pricing will jump for everybody but you if you're already in there, and everybody else is already in there too. As kind of like that Discover commercial, right? Where it's like, even Betty Jane or whatever the girl's name was, you too can get the same deal. Because Jared, we're going to talk football here shortly, and if this game here starting us off, it's first off, it's the best basketball game of the night. If this was college football, I feel like you'd be licking your chops. We did get this game. We get this game every year in college football, and it's usually a doozy. It's usually
it is
a lot of turnovers and safeties and punts. It's your kind of jam.
Yep. Making both of these teams making the unbelievable happen.
Yes. Iowa is just such a whiplash. We've talked about this before, that they just like to score in threes, whether it's in basketball or football. One of those is better than the other. But it's got to be just such a whiplash if you're an Iowa student watching your football team with just incredible defense and absolutely no offense. And relative to Big Ten and Power 5 standards, that defense for Iowa is just not good at all. It's not as bad as, whatever a rando team, Long Island, right? But it's not good for Power 5 standards. On the flip side of that, Iowa State's defense is really good. I mean, this is the game of the night, strength on strength, Iowa's offense and Iowa State's defense. The difference is, and this is often what we talk about with Iowa football, is aside from the strength on strength matchup, how does Iowa's defense, the biggest weakness here, match up with their opponent's offense? In this case, Iowa State's offense is pretty solid. This Iowa State team is pretty good. Because there should be a lot of pace and a lot of points, but we're staying away from that consideration. And going to go, that says pace there in points, and that should say ranking and probability of winning. Iowa State with a 76% chance of winning makes minus 265. A B grade pick. The last thing I want to say before I turn it over to you, because you're talking about this, is just a reminder to everyone, right? Whether it's money line or spread, you do what you're comfortable with. We're never trying to say this is what you should or shouldn't do. We're here to just talk about what we're doing, why we're doing it, why we like it, why we think it makes money. The bottom line is, historically speaking, whether it's with college basketball or any of the models that I've built, they're calibrated well enough such that when we say 76% in general, that pretty well holds, which means anything that starts with a 2 is going to be an ROI positive investment. So the idea is we expect to basically make 4 bets like this over the course of the season, or over the course of the month, or the course of whenever. It doesn't really matter your time frame at this minus 265, and we do expect to lose one of them. We don't know which one. We expect to win 3 of them, and the winnings from the 3 at this price will offset the losses from the 1, and we will turn out ahead. And the last just reminder, and this is counterintuitive, but again, we are an educational program here. Put us on PBS, right? We do kind of hope we lose one of these out of the 4. Why is that? Because the flip side holds true. When we say a team has a 25% chance to win, we like to be able to say, well, cool, I'll bet them at plus 500. or something like that, because I know that that'll make money too. If the 76% games won at 100% clip, something's wrong, right? We will expect to lose one of them, but when we lose 1 out of 4, this price makes for a profitable pick. So hopefully that tracks with you, viewer. Cousin Jared, I'm sure you will get less into the math weeds than I just did.
Yep, definitely won't get that far into the math weeds, but I've said it a couple of times on the show so far this season. I'll say it again. Iowa basketball on the road, just not great. They went 3-7 last season straight up on the road, and some of those losses to teams that they were definitely better than last year's Nebraska, Penn State, Northwestern, last year's Northwestern. It wasn't a pretty side. Obviously, Big Ten tough conference, lots of tough road losses there as well. But earlier in the season, we talked about, you listed off their road ATS record, and their ATS record wasn't good either. So I'm sure they were dogs in some of those games, and they were losing them big and not losing them close. So the other thing is you look at who Iowa has played so far this season, and they have losses to Purdue and Oklahoma. Purdue, very good team, of course. Oklahoma, decent team. Iowa State, somewhere in between Oklahoma and Purdue, according to Sidelines ratings. But the thing is, when Iowa lost both of those games fairly handily, they weren't necessarily close. And when you look at those games, there wasn't really anything about how the games played out that made you think Iowa could have done anything differently. So in the game against Oklahoma, Iowa shot 17% from three. That seems not good. The thing is, Oklahoma only shot 20% from three. So Oklahoma did not really capitalize on Iowa being cold. Iowa rebounded them. They had just about as many free throws, and somehow Oklahoma still won that game by 12 points. And then you look at the Purdue game, and they actually outshot Purdue from three. They hit over 70% of their free throws. And again, the game was never really close. There wasn't, Iowa hasn't been struggling in one area and the opponent exploiting it. And that's what's been leading to Iowa losses. It's like, it's been fairly evenly matched, and Iowa's been losing by double digits. I don't really see that changing here with an Iowa State team. Number one, it's a very good team. Number two, we talked about Iowa's struggle straight up in conference road games last year. I think this is going to be played like a conference game. And number two, Iowa State got beat by Iowa last year, and I'm sure that has probably sat with them for a while, and they are thinking about that and excited that this game is going to be in Ames. So I just like Iowa State here. I until proven otherwise, it's going to be one of those things where I'm going to have to see Iowa play well on the road before I am ready to back them. And until then, it's basically going to be, if Sideline says there's any value, I want to fade Iowa on the road.
And gosh, there's so many things to point out about that. Number one, as I think you mentioned yesterday in the extended cut, right? Our goal in this show, the A grade plays in general are smart investments. And that doesn't mean you have to play every one of them if there's reasons not to, sure. But in general, for the most part, again, across all sports, they've done well enough that most people who've been here for any length of time tend to trust the long-term profitability and viability of the A grade picks. Our goal here is kind of give people a taste of that who aren't with us on Dub Club, but also kind of highlight the B and or C grade picks that we think are worth mentioning, that maybe the model doesn't see quite the value, but we see something else. And that's a great point. There's no variable in the model to really track Iowa. They are kind of extreme, and they're kind of extreme again in both football and basketball, in that there's a specific thing in football where they do really well against the teams below them, and they're terrible against the teams better than them, right? Penn State's another one in football we've talked about like that. And in basketball, Iowa is just a very extreme home road team. I don't quite know why. There are probably other teams out there. I just haven't noticed them like Iowa. You really notice it with Iowa. You mentioned road conference games. In reality, of course, there is no distinction between road conference and non-conference for Power 5 schools, because Power 5 schools play so few road non-conference games. For your smaller schools, that actually does make a difference, because for them, you need to look at what conference they're in. Are they stepping up in class, going down in class? Because it can kind of go either way, depending on who you are, right? But for these Power 5 schools, they typically will only play one or two true road games a year, and they're usually against good competition. So it acts like a conference game, right? We saw it with Villanova going to Kansas State. Like that's one of the few road games they're going to play. That acted like a conference game because Kansas State's really good. Whoever it was that just went into Kansas, I don't remember, was that UConn last week? And again, they don't play many true road games. And so same thing here, like, Iowa, struggling on the road in conference or just in general as a road team, whatever is going on with them. It's not, such a small sample size thing that it's fluky. It's like, it seems like there's something going on there with him. And I kind of had the same thought as you. Anytime there's any value at all fading Iowa on the road, it seems good. We had Iowa and the over against Purdue on this show earlier in the week, lost it. We did have an A grade pick on Purdue laying the points. And so thankfully that offset it. We didn't have that pick on show. That was a Dub Club exclusive. When we have double A grades, we just pick one, and it kind of is what it is on the show. It is, and they oftentimes they've split a lot of times. I mean, every once in a while we will get the double winner. They very rarely double lose. But when they split that, and the same thing happened with North Carolina, we had the A grade in that one earlier this week on the over, and then the A grade on the +6. And it's like, sometimes we just pick. We've talked about that a lot, right? We're very fallible in what we're picking on this. And that's why we always encourage people to check out all of the A grades, because sometimes, you zig and zag and it goes the wrong direction. But if nothing else, that was a good reminder of us earlier in the week that fading Iowa on the road is usually a smart thing to do. You don't want to snub your nose at that opportunity when you get it.
And that's the show, people. That's all the good games to talk about.
That's all the good games to talk about. Now, this is what would happen. Usually, this would be the extended cut of the show where we, then we talk about the crap games that we found value on, but nobody wants to watch. And that's it. We've done the good games. Now we're to basically the extended cut, but we're, this is just only game 2 of the night for us here. Folks, it gets worse. It gets worse after this one with regards to the quality of the game, not necessarily the betting quality, but the viewing quality. But this one's going to be really ugly. I do have a quality metric according to Sideline, and this one's pretty down there. Little Rock and Central Arkansas, the saving grace is that Little Rock plays fast. They're better on offense and defense. Central Arkansas is just terrible. We've backed Central Arkansas several times. They've been fairly good to us because they score enough for the most part to not get completely blown out most games. They got us a good cover earlier
against Hawaii.
Against Hawaii. And so we backed them a few times here. This one is like kind of a hold your nose and do it. It's not a a lot of times people like say, talk about hold your nose when you play a bad dog or you play an over in a low scoring football game. This is the other way. This is going under a high number, but hey, we always talk about, you should be willing to go over or under in any game if the number's right. And this is a situation where the number seems right to go under this big number. There will be a lot of points. Absolutely. And every game, for the most part, does seem to follow a bell curve, in that if you played the game 100 times, you'd have a bunch of them in the middle and a few really highs and a few really lows. The normal distribution is called normal because it occurs a lot. It doesn't occur in everything, and we probably overuse it in society, but that side note aside, that tends to hold with totals, especially in college basketball, especially because of the fact that, it's not like you're scoring in 3s and 7s of limited scoring in football, which that one gets a little bit weirder. Baseball, a little bit weirder, but college basketball holds pretty well. So just as a reminder, right, we're not trying to predict the future. We don't know exactly what will happen. This game could have 170 points. It could have 150 points. Could have 140 points, right? There's 140 would be probably on the low side. That would be slightly below average. That's definitely on the table if either one of these teams, especially if Little Rock goes cold. It could be more in the 140s if Little Rock blows them out. We end up with a sleepy second half. But as bad as UCA's defense is, as bad as Little Rock's defense is, and as much pace as Little Rock offers, this 159 is a little bit high for the quality of basketball we're going to see. And I've said it a lot, and it hasn't happened in every single game. And that's why I try to remind you, viewer, and I hope I'm not, beating the drum too much or whatever kind of phrase you want to use there. But it's just a reminder, right? Our confidence doesn't come in one game. I don't know what's going to happen in one game. I mean, no one does. If that's what you're looking for, again, I don't know what to tell you. Our confidence comes in following a process over multiple games. And we've talked about it. Here's just talk about our recent examples. Texas and Marquette, a game that just got over where we said, hey, with better quality basketball, it's easier to get more points.
Yep.
And with weaker quality basketball, it's easier to fall short of that. Doesn't mean it always happens. It just means that's what the model is seeing. It's done us well in totals so far. 159 is just way too much. We're going to go under that number as the model thinks more like 153 because this game should get into the 150s. But to think it's 50-50 to get in the 160s seems like a stretch. Yeah. Especially with the quality of UCA's offense. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. So you brought up something when we talked about Colorado State and Denver yesterday, where you said that overnight a lot of these really high lines will come down even further from where they're currently at. If you're looking to go, over, I think there is a reason for that. I think that people, basically when you see a number in the 160s, it's just really hard in a college basketball game for it to get there. You kind of have to have the right teams and the games play out in a very certain way for it to get, get to that number.
Or just UMBC. That's the other one.
Yes.
If UMBC's involved, sure.
Yes, definitely. They are an exception. They are to overs what Towson is to unders. So where I'm going with this is, in general, it's just very, very difficult for a game to get into the 160s. And I look at where Sideline has this 152.5. We usually say that some of these high totals come down, overnight into the next morning. I have to imagine this is going to be the exact same thing. So I would say grab this now. There's a reason why those numbers tend to come down on these totals. It's because it is just hard to get to 160-some points in a basketball game. Could this game do it? Absolutely, 100%. It definitely could. But the quality of these two teams makes me wonder whether or not, somebody could go cold. This game could be a blowout one way or the other. It's not two high quality basketball teams. And look at that Central Arkansas offense. Not the best. Just not the best.
Not the best. Yeah. Not the best at all. And it's just a reminder, right? And obviously the paces of these teams aren't comparable, but it's just a want to remind people, like, here on Tuesday night, or should be Wednesday night. I don't even know what day it is anymore. I don't know where I'm at anything. Wednesday night, right? We had a lot of basketball games. Campbell and Davidson, right? Weaker quality basketball. That game had 112 points. If I just scroll through the games, Hofstra, Iona, weaker quality basketball. That game didn't get to 120. American and St. Joseph's, and St. Joseph's isn't a bad team. That game, Bryant Siena didn't get to 120. And I know the paces aren't probably exactly the same as Little Rock. So I'm not trying to say that this game's going to be at 120. It's just a reminder that, again, in general, the better quality is going to be more points and the weaker quality is fewer points because, again, it's not like football where the defense and offense is kind of similar. The way it plays out in basketball, a lot of the defense is about effort. And no matter how bad you are, you can still provide effort. And so your floor is higher on defense, but the ceiling is just a whole different level of how good you can get offensively at the top schools and the bottom schools. And so, 159 here, A grade pick in that one. And it's a little scary to go under a big number like this, but if you've been watching us at any time recently, we've not been afraid to go over really big numbers a lot of times, and we shouldn't be afraid to go under them as well. And the same thing with low numbers. We've gone under a lot of them, and we'll go over them too if we feel like they're too low. So it doesn't matter what the number is. The number can have value. There's always a number that you should take. Maybe you say, I want 160, 161, whatever it is. That's fine. Our threshold for this, we're really liking this under probably more like 158. So, I mean, we're still got a little bit of wiggle room here, but any of these upper 150 numbers makes for a pretty appealing under, even though obviously overtime can get us, late fouls can get us, weird things can happen like that. The A grade unders have performed positive on the season, well in the season, just as the A grade overs have. So this is a good value pick here according to the model. And then wrapping us up, oh boy, I don't know if we've had a game rated lower quality than this one, according to Sideline. I mean, the way I've built the metric is it's a combination of how good are the teams and how close is the game expected to be. I haven't put total number of points in there. I probably should add that as a third variable in, but that would also be bad for this one. That would make this one probably worse because we're expecting a low scoring game. You can see there on the screen, both of these teams are in the 300s with regards to pace. IUPUI is just bad at basketball. As we were just talking about, weaker teams have fewer points. And Eastern Illinois is a team we've tended to like their unders as long as the number has been reasonable. Because Jared, if I remember correctly, we were on the EIU unders last year for a while for a similar thing. Their defense was okay. Their offense was really bad. They played slow. And there was a time when their totals would be at like 121. And I feel like we'd be like, like, should we or shouldn't we? Like, it's so low, but like, gosh, this team could like plays a bunch of games that struggle to get to 110, you know? This number at 130 in the 130s just seems off to me. Sideline says 129. Even that seems high. I mean, I feel like IUPUI can play some stanky basketball, absolutely, on defense, but I don't think EIU is the team to really take advantage of that, right? Like a good offense will put up 80 on IUPUI, but I just don't know if Eastern Illinois is that team. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so just for the record, this game, as far as games the past 2 days, this game barely inches out Wagner and Coppin State as the worst game of the past couple of days. So your assessment was correct.
Part of that game, and it was miserable.
Yeah. So buckle up if you want to watch IUPUI and Eastern Illinois graphic content. So what I would say is, number one, look at the pace of these two teams and look at the offense of these two teams. Eastern Illinois' defense is going to be an absolute gauntlet for IUPUI to have to go through with that 211 rating. I just don't know how IUPUI is going to score very many points. Get with us over on Dub Club. Maybe Sideline feels strongly one way or the other about IUPUI or Eastern Illinois in this game. Nice that one may
I like that.
Yeah. Got to make sure to get over there to get all the picks. But yeah, I just don't see how this game is going to go over with these two atrocious teams, and just the off, like, nothing about these offenses screams mid 130s. It just feels like one of those gross games that ends up at about 123.
This is one of those games I feel like that, because we talked a lot about there's more points in college basketball this year, the block charge change, likely the fuel to that. I don't know what else it would be.
Yeah,
that would really explain it. And that's kind of up the average number of points in the college basketball game, 3, 4, 5 points ish, kind of depending on which week you're looking at, which eye you're closing, what you want to count as the baseline, right? That sort of thing. We'll say on average 4 points. And so this one feels like its total is here only because of that boost. Like if this was in previous seasons, this total would be like 125.
That's true.
I'm like, it maybe still should be 125, to be honest. Like it's one of those things where maybe it should be 125 now, and back then it should have been one of those at 120. Because even last year we saw totals in the one, I remember a couple of slow teams playing slow teams, and it would be, you'd see a 118 or a 121 or something like that. The Coppin State game you just mentioned, I noticed this morning was 123.5, and it was I think a B grade, and I jumped on that under and had to hold my breath to get it in at, I think 121 is where it landed. And that's kind of what this feels like, one of those 121 point games, rather than a 131 point game. Even 131 would get us the win. So pretty good under pick. We have a pretty strong feeling about whether you should be, which side you should be on, and if you should be taking points or laying points or taking money line or laying money line. All that's on this one as well over on Dub Club. So great reminder of that tease there. And of course, with your recap there, again, more picks on Dub Club. There's really nothing more else to say than that. There's your promo code on screen if you want to get over there, and also get on our Discord chat where people are constantly giving out picks they like, parlays they like, fantasy sports advice they like, whatever, and just having a grand old time. Laughing at the absurdity of the amount of time we spend analyzing 19-year-olds playing sports, which is kind of a weird thought if you think about it, but here we are.
I try not to think about it.
Yeah, we should probably not think about that too long. No extended cut again, because there's like nothing. You basically saw the extended cut, because that's the garbage we talk about on the extended cut, is these games nobody wants to watch, but maybe we can find some value in them. We'll do the NFL show again. If you're not listening to the NFL show, you need to be. with all the money that Sideline has made us. Sundays have become insanely fun. So we're about to do that. That show will be dropping a couple hours after this one drops. Otherwise, Cousin Jared, parting words for the viewer.
Stick around and watch me do an NFL show for the first time ever.
And talk Army Navy.
And talk Army Navy. That's the whole reason I'm doing this. I want to talk Army Navy so badly. I took the trade-off of I'll talk about the NFL.
Yep. All right. Well, here comes the music, and hopefully we see you on the NFL show as well.